So what does organizational unit management involve? Let's go to the whiteboard. In designing our structure, of course, we start at the top, or in this case, our root domain. And our root domain we'll call sterlingmv.com. Now, of course, it would be a little bit crazy just to have one large container, a bit like a filing cabinet, and just throw everything in. So it's easier to manage things in folders, for example, in a file system, or in Active Directory, we call these OUs. Planning and managing organizational units could be a potential nightmare. But one of the things you want to do as an administrator is first of all have an idea of how your organization is mapped out. Once you have that in place, you can then obviously design a workable and manageable organizational unit strategy. So we can basically create or design OUs based on your company's organizational structure, based maybe on the job function that the department does. You may even base it on a company's location, or you might have a combination of these things. So here we have, for example, the New York OU, and within New York we can, let's say, we can have users, and we can also have computers. So there's an example of what we call a child OU. One of the other benefits of organizational units is that you can also, as an administrator, delegate some of the responsibility onto, let's say, junior administrators or maybe managers who might be responsible for managing users, computers, or even printers at local branches or remote sites. So I basically could say, well, you know, I've got somebody in New York who's pretty savvy, so you can delegate either all Active Directory permissions to this OU so he can create, manage objects within the OU, or you might even just delegate a single action or a single responsibility. You can make it as granular as resetting passwords or give them complete access to the organizational unit. Either way, it's very powerful. Another feature of Active Directory is group policy. And group policy is where I can assign, for example, if I wanted to assign a software application, if I wanted to make some desktop restrictions, if I wanted to set up some security settings, but just for that particular OU. So again, group policy is an extremely powerful feature. Which brings me to another feature. This is called group policy inheritance. So by default, any settings that an administrator sets at the parent OU, they waterfall down to all child OUs. Now, this waterfalling effect can actually be blocked at the child OU level. So, for example, in New York, if you had a particular group of managers who really needed to manage their own, let's say, group policy settings, you could set up what we call block inheritance here. And that would be fine. That would essentially block anything coming from above. However, your domain administrator might want to deploy, let's say, an antivirus application. So he can deploy that antivirus application, obviously, at the domain level. So that policy could then be forced down to all child OUs. So even though the sub-OU administrator has said, no, I want to block those settings, because it's been set by a network or enterprise administrator, this essentially can't be blocked. One of the really cool features of Windows Server 2008, and also one of the most requested features by customers, is the prevention of accidental deletion. One of the nice features of AD is the fact that we can now have an organizational unit, and we can also have lots and lots of users in there. And you may also have computers in there as well. And one of the problems is you may have junior administrators on staff who go ahead and hit the delete button. And if you hit the delete button, then of course you lose not only the OU, but also you lose all your users and computers within that OU. I always find it very interesting that even though you press delete and it says, are you absolutely sure you want to delete this? Inevitably, there's somebody going to hit that enter button to confirm it. And then you go, oh no, what are we going to do? So now in Active Directory, what we've got is if I go into the properties of the OU, You've now got the Object tab, and at last, you've now got this little checkbox that says Prevent from Accidental Deletion. And this is really, really useful because obviously now, if that junior administrator or yourself hits the delete button here, it basically says, oops, well, this OU has actually been protected and you're not actually able to delete this OU. So as we've said, the design of Active Directory in terms of organizational unit, it can basically match your organizational unit structure, or it can match, let's say, a job role, but whatever you use, it's extremely flexible.